A Charlie Brown Christmas is one of the most famous Christmas specials ever made, which is already an impressive feat in and of itself, but even more so when you keep in mind that this was the very first animated special the Peanuts ever had. And it was even the extreme success of this special that helped make Charlie Brown so popular outside of the comic strip. And when you really look at everything that was stacked against it, the fact that it managed to defy all the odds and become a Christmas classic is nothing short of amazing. And today, I'd like to go over everything surrounding A Charlie Brown Christmas, from its production to its themes and especially its moral. And as I'm basically obligated to say, there will be spoilers ahead. So if you have somehow never seen or heard of this special before, please do yourself a favor and go watch it first. Okay, so to put it simply, before this special was released all the way back on December 5th, 1965, pretty much everybody involved with it thought it was going to be a disaster. Even Peanuts creator and writer of the special, Charles M. Schulz, started to think it was destined to fail once he saw the final product. But it was mainly the studio itself that was convinced it was never going to catch on with audiences due to its depressing atmosphere, slow pace, and the lack of Santa Claus or other holiday figure, as well as feeling it was too preachy. But against all odds, audiences loved it, and to this day is considered one of the greatest Christmas specials to have ever aired, as well as one of the best things to ever come from the Peanuts comic strip. And what helps separate it from so many other Christmas specials out there, both at the time and now, is because of how sincere it is. I mean, everybody loves a good wholesome Christmas special, but Charlie Brown focuses a lot more on the other side of the spectrum, as you would expect. The side that most people try to pretend isn't there around Christmas, which is the resulting depression that can come from such a happy holiday. For any number of reasons, people can relate to Charlie Brown and the overall feeling behind the special, because instead of showing the idealized side of Christmas, it depicts what happens when people feel let down by it, or have issues in their own lives that prevent them from being able to enjoy it. And it's all those particular, more depressing adult feelings that it's able to capture so well that makes it so unique. But another, more interesting thing about this special compared to most others is that it's not Charlie Brown who needs to learn the true meaning of Christmas, but pretty much everybody else. And the reason he's so depressed isn't because he's afraid of not getting something or unable to get a gift for somebody else, but because he wants to be able to celebrate what Christmas is actually about. And all everybody around him seems interested in is what they've been led to believe Christmas is about, which amounts to having as much fun and giving into as much greed as possible, which is honestly just one big perversion of what Christmas is supposed to be, and therefore why Charlie Brown is so upset. Because even though he's in the right, the pressure from everyone around him makes him continually wonder if he's the problem. And this is perhaps best demonstrated with the iconic little tree. Because simply put, Charlie Brown does do the right thing in that scene. He sees a tiny, helpless creature that he believes needs his help, and thus chooses it for his play against the much bigger, fancier, but ultimately hollow imitations of trees. And everybody's reaction is to chew him out as a complete idiot, even though he did exactly what one should do at Christmas. He gave love, help and charity to something in need, and ultimately did so knowing he was probably going to get berated for it. And sure enough, everybody is so caught up in the commercialization of Christmas that all they can see is Charlie Brown being a complete fool that chose the most pathetic tree possible for their play, because all they care about is appearances. And as I said before, their reaction to it is so openly mean and hostile that it causes Charlie Brown to question everything, which then leads into Linus's iconic speech as to what Christmas is really all about. And honestly, it was pretty bold of Charles M. Schulz to actually go full on into the Christian message and purpose behind Christmas in this scene. Because whether you agree with it or not, or practice the religion or not, that is ultimately where the holiday of Christmas comes from. People celebrating the birth of the man they believe to be the savior of the human race. And that's why Christmas is supposed to be all about love, giving, charity, and helping those in need. Because that's exactly what that man spent his entire life preaching. Now, once again, you can celebrate Christmas for any reason that you want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as I just said, to just come right out and say in a Christmas special that potentially millions of people would be watching that Christmas is really all about in its purest form, even if many would disagree with it, was a commendable move on Charles M. Schulz's part, and probably a major reason for its lasting appeal. Because it's that scene, more than any other, that shows just how sincere it is in its message. Rather than opting for a generic lesson in the spirit of giving, it gets right to the actual heart of the matter and says point blank, that's what Christmas is all about. Now, once again, you can believe whatever you want to, or feel that the speech shouldn't have been there, but the fact that it was does help make the special as notable as it is, because it tore all the commercialization right off of the holiday in one fell swoop by taking it all the way back to its origin and original meaning. And notably, and tying into what I was saying before, after hearing this speech, Charlie Brown is only inspired by it to celebrate Christmas the way it's supposed to be, while it's everybody else that realizes what selfish jerks they had been and finally bring to life the potential Charlie Brown had seen in the tree, showing how even the seemingly most pathetic of things can be great and beautiful when shown a little love and kindness. And as a result, this probably has one of the happiest endings of any Peanuts story ever, because Charlie Brown, for once, gets exactly what he wanted, with everybody embracing the true meaning of Christmas along with him. So as I said at the beginning, a major part of the appeal behind this special is simply in how both sincere and committed it is to delivering its message to the audience, as well as how it touches on subjects that most other Christmas specials tend to avoid like the plague, making it a truly unique experience. And it's in that complete sincerity and dedication to its moral that it succeeds where most of its bad imitators failed, because they just don't understand the complex dynamics and themes behind it. But that being said, there is also a level of irony to the message behind this special about commercialization destroying the notion of what Christmas is supposed to be about. And it's not due to the fact that it was produced by a company in order to make money. Instead, it's something a lot more complicated. Because, first of all, A Charlie Brown Christmas wasn't the first piece of entertainment to tackle the issue of Christmas becoming overly commercialized. The 1947 Christmas classic Miracle on 34th Street, for example, heavily explores the stranglehold companies have on the holiday, to the point that Santa Claus himself has to become involved for people to even try and remember what the holiday is really about. The whole movie was even conceived on the idea of what the real Santa Claus would think of what Christmas had become in the 20th century. And comedian Stan Freberg released an extremely satirical Christmas album in 1958 entitled Green Christmas, which was all about companies exploiting a wholesome holiday for financial gain. He was even inspired to write the album after seeing a commercial where a family is ecstatic over getting snow tires for Christmas, which he found to be both unrealistic and very offensive. So the point is, A Charlie Brown Christmas wasn't alone in its views on what Christmas had become as a holiday versus what it should be, even if it did still take a more direct approach in addressing that than most others did. But here's where the irony comes in. If Christmas wasn't as commercialized as it was, then it wouldn't be nearly as well known or celebrated as it is. I mean, there are hundreds of holidays throughout the calendar year, and the only one that comes even remotely close to matching the popularity and notoriety of Christmas is Halloween. And even then, Christmas is still more celebrated and beloved by a large margin. What I'm trying to say is, if Christmas weren't as commercial, not as many people would celebrate it, and at least have the potential to learn the lessons behind what it's supposed to be about. In other words, the commercialization behind Christmas may give the wrong impression of what the holiday is supposed to be, but it also makes more people celebrate the holiday than they ordinarily would, which can then lead to them realizing what the holiday is actually all about. So in a weird sort of way, Christmas being so commercialized can be seen as a good thing because it gives it way more exposure than it would otherwise get, and allow people who would have otherwise never heard of it to experience the holiday and maybe even learn what it is at its core. Almost like what happens in A Charlie Brown Christmas, ironically enough. But at the same time, that isn't to say that A Charlie Brown Christmas and the other aforementioned things weren't wrong to be critical of the commercialization of Christmas either. Because as I just said, while in an ironic way, Christmas being so commercial can be a good thing because of the exposure it gives the holiday, it can still be taken way too far, and it arguably is way too often. And it's that, more than anything else, the commercializing of Christmas to ridiculous extremes, that those pieces of entertainment are trying to take down, not necessarily commercialization as a concept. Like, for example, one of the biggest shots the special takes is at big, fancy Christmas trees made out of metal. Just an exaggerated metaphor of how sterile Christmas has become, right? Wrong. You see, in the 1960s, Christmas trees made out of aluminum were starting to become a lot more popular, mainly because they were a lot less flammable than real trees or fake ones made out of similar material, and had a lot more potential design-wise. But after being put in such a bad light in the special, people stopped buying them almost overnight and started going back to old-fashioned Christmas trees. Because while in many ways they may be less practical, it harkens back to and represents what Christmas is actually about a lot more than a hunk of metal molded into the vague outline of a tree. And as a result, aluminum Christmas trees were taken off the market just a few years after the special premiered, leaving the reference to them lost on most people and leaving them to assume that the short was simply exaggerating to get its point across. But if nothing else, one definitely can't make the claim that its message about commercialization of Christmas going too far didn't leave an impact on viewers. So in the end, while A Charlie Brown Christmas most definitely stands as one of the most unique Christmas specials to ever hit the airwaves, it's also definitely one of the most beloved. It gets absolutely everything right from the characters to the comedy, but most importantly, unlike most other Christmas-related content, it not only actually understands the message it's trying to impart, but also heavily commits to delivering it in ways that most would be hesitant to even decades later. And I'm not necessarily saying that makes it better than most other things, just that it took a very interesting and ultimately worthwhile approach. And its commentary on how Christmas has become overly commercialized, and way too much for its own good at that, as well as its depiction of holiday depression, are all things that have arguably only become even more relevant over time, making the special even more important today than it was in 1965. Okay, I think that's everything I had to say on that. So now I'd like to hear your opinions. Do you believe A Charlie Brown Christmas deserves its distinction as one of the best Christmas specials ever made, especially in how it tackles the theme of commercialization, making people forget what the holiday is supposed to be about? Or do you think it's overrated and too depressing? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But let's please keep it civil, because you don't have to agree with any opinions expressed in this video. I know that Christmas can be a very passionate subject for a lot of people, and it's okay to feel any way about it that you want to. Even if you think I'm wrong about anything I said, I'll respect anybody's opinion on it so long as they are respectful to mine and everybody else's in turn. And finally, thank you all for watching. It is all very much appreciated, and I hope to see you all next time.